How do? My name is Andrew Hancock and I am a VMware technical architect from Yorkshire in the United Kingdom. I have worked with VMware since their birth in 1998, so that has been over 24 years I've been working with the VMware product catalogue. Some of my close colleagues may say, if you cut Andy in half these days, it reads VMware like a stick of rock from Blackpool Pleasure Beach. I have now written 130 articles and recorded 10 hours of VMware vSphere videos for Experts Exchange and received 41 Experts Exchange awards over the last 10 years working with the Experts Exchange community. I am currently the overall #1 point earner in the Hall of Fame at Experts Exchange. I am honoured to have been accepted into the VMware vExpert program since 2011 and more recently a VMware vExpert Pro for the last 3 years.
Okay, so welcome back to another Hancock's VMware half hour. And as I said, we were going to go through in the last few videos in looking at all these little warning messages that we've got, all these little blue boxes, and rather than just basically just click suppress, which doesn't really fix the issue at hand, we'd go and fix them. So we've looked so far at we've changed the syslog location to shared storage. We've looked at basically fixing the core dump issue, and then finally we've got this other warning here on this host, these two hosts actually that we've just added to our cluster. We've got this host is potentially vulnerable to an issue described in CVE 2018-3646, and if we click the link we can read all about it, and it's all about the L1 terminal fault, speculative execution vulnerabilities in Intel processors, predominantly in older Intel processors. Now really a lot of this has been fixed in newer processors, and this is all to do with side channel, and it's to do with issues in hyper-threading. And you may have noticed that our first server here, although it's a 2690 v3, it shows number of logical processors 24, and it should actually technically have more than that, but that's because hyperthreading effectively is disabled on it, or removed, or not configured. So it's actually showing the number of cores, which is 12 per host CPU, 24, and not if you look at these here, which is actually showing logical processors 40. Logical processors 24, and logical processors 40, and logical processors 40. So quite simply, I've already obviously enabled the mitigation on this particular host, but I've not done it on these two hosts yet. And quite simply how we complete this, if we actually sort of kind of dig down into this article and we have a look at the vSphere KB and we scroll all the way down, we can see that there are some ESXi CLI commands that we can run for the enabling the ESXi side channel aware schedule, SCAV2, and we can either basically use the advanced system settings that we've done previously, or we can actually use some ESLX CLI commands. So I'm actually going to do some ESX CLI commands, and I'm going to check to see if these are enabled first of all. So I'm just going to cut and paste that there, and I'm going to look at our, and we can currently see that it's currently false. So it's not enabled on 009, and I'm going to look at, and we can also see that it's not enabled on 11. So if we actually go back to that article, and we can now just again cut and paste, and I'm going to enable it on that article, I'm going to enable it on that host, I'm going to enable it on that host, and there's one final key that needs enabling, and I'm going to set that to true as well. And I'm just going to run that as well. So I'm just going to go back and check So that's set to true, configured for true. It's not currently set to false. Runtime is currently false because we need to reboot these servers for this mitigation to, and that's currently set to true, false and false. Okay, so we need to reboot these servers, but at present I've got a virtual machine running on, got Sawtail running on number 9, and of course I've got vCenter server running on number 11. So if you had a little look before at our hosts, and we look at the summary, you can see here that this says EVC enabled, so this also says EVC enabled, and this also says EVC enabled. But if you notice that there was another icon here that said that vMotion was enabled on this host, but vMotion is not enabled on this host, and it's not enabled on this host. And I'm just going to quickly show you how I can just temporarily, if I look at our VM kernel here, I can just quickly edit that and just tag it and say that vMotion's enabled. And I'm going to do exactly the same with this VM kernel here. I'm going to say vMotion is enabled on there. I'm just going to check that obviously our VM kernels need to be able to talk to one another, and vMotion is already enabled on that particular VM kernel. So I should be able to migrate, change compute resource only. Now, this is actually basically telling me that it's looked at the VM networks on our hosts, and it's actually saying that the policies on the source network are different to the destination network. So let's just have a little look at what those policies are on our vSwitch. So if I actually look at our VMK network here, and I have a little look at the settings and I have a little look at the policies. So our security is set for reject, accept, accept. So let's have a little look on our VM network here. And our policies are set for reject, reject, reject. So quite simply, all I need to do is just change the security policies. And that's actually let's edit them on the overall switch so they match. Reject, accept, accept. That's the wrong switch, sorry. Edit, security, reject, accept. Accept. So if I got that right, if we go back to our virtual machine and we click migrate, change compute, compatibility check succeeded, followed by next, compatibility check succeeded, next, next, and finish. And hopefully we should be able to migrate that virtual machine off our host with no issue. And I'm going to do exactly the same with our vCenter server. I'm going to migrate it. ESXi 007 followed by next. And again, it's complaining about the... Now that could be because, again, on ESXi 011, our security policy is different again. Accept. Accept. So going to go back to, and of course I've just done that in real time. That's not going to affect the running of our virtual machines. So okay, so that's actually going to migrate off. So whilst that's migrating, live migration via vMotion. So I'm just changing the compute. I'm just moving the guest OS from one host to another host in real time with no downtime. And this is also migrating VMware vCenter server as well. And a lot of people, I think, get a little bit scared, a little bit confused of, can we vMotion itself effectively? Because we're actually vMotioning. vCenter server is doing the vMotion task of vMotioning itself. And the answer is yes, of course we can. So I'm going to put this host into maintenance mode. It's got no VMs running on it now, other than this vCluster service. So I'm just going to put that into maintenance mode. That's in maintenance mode, and we're going to wait for this final VM here to migrate off. Obviously this is a larger VM. It's 16 gig of RAM, 2 CPU cores. So it's going to wait until the machine is less busy before it finally actually swaps that over to the other host. But in the meantime, I'm now basically just going to turn around and say, well, reboot that host, and I'm just going to enter a reason, enabled hyper-threading mitigation CVE. If I can spell mitigation, mitigation. So that host is going to reboot, and when this is finished, I'm going to put it into maintenance mode, and I'm going to reboot it as well. And when those hosts come back up again, hopefully all those little SSH issues, all those little mitigations will be done. So I'm just going to exit out of SSH, and I'm going to exit out of SSH here, although that's already gone down, so I'm going to get rid of that one. And I'm going to exit out of SSH here on ESXi 007, and I'm going to stop running SSH. Stop. That's in maintenance mode. That's actually going to go down shortly and say disconnected. Okay, so we've not got any VMs now running on here. Other than that, I'm going to put that into maintenance mode, ready for it to go. I'm going to shut that down. So maintenance mode. Okay, and I'm going to basically do exactly the same thing. I'm going to do a reboot, and I'm going to say the reason is that. Okay, so that's it. I'll pause the video, and I'll just wait for those to come back up, and then we'll summarise what we've done, and then we can have a little look at that. See if we can actually do a little bit of a deep dive on number 11, and see whether or not that red exclamation mark as to what that error is, because I'm not seeing anything completely obvious, other than I know in my head that does have a memory fault. But let's see if we can do a little bit of digging around in the logs, in the hardware health, to see whether or not that we can find out why that is. Okay, so I'll be back very shortly. So we're back. Okay, both ESX009 and ESX011 have now restarted. So I'm just going to basically exit maintenance mode on them both. And you will notice that we've got no blue boxes. Blue boxes have gone. Of course, we've got the little vMotion icon here now, and we've got the little vMotion icon on here now. But we'll in a later video we'll change the configuration of that to make it more production-like with jumbo frames. But it was just temporarily done so that we could migrate VMware vCenter Server 7 and Sortel off these two machines. And you may notice now that the logical processors that we have are 20 rather than 40 that we had before, since we've now enabled that mitigation against that CVE, which again I will put in the description as well for you to look at if you ever see that particular warning. And I did say that we'd have a little look at what is causing our red alert there. So I'm just going to do this very, very quickly. I don't want this video to go on too long with me debugging while I've got a red exclamation mark. So let's have a little look at triggered alarms. So the critical alarm at the moment that's actually stating that it's the power supply, which of course you know about because it's only got one power supply connected at the moment. So that's reset that alert. I was expecting to see if that memory fault had come back again. So maybe I'll leave the machine running for 30 minutes more and see whether or not that we can get that back up again and have a little look as to where that is. Look at some of the events. And I'm not going to dwell too long. Can't see anything obvious there at the moment. The power supply alert there, which we know about. Memory devices are all at the moment appearing as normal. Okay, well we'll leave it there. Okay, so again, thanks very much for watching this shorter video. We are now in a situation whereby we've not got any warnings present in our hosts. And later on I'm going to show you a couple of videos, one on Runecast and one on Skyline, that actually basically helps you out with errors and warnings amongst your in your VMware vSphere environment. So once again, thanks so much for watching. All the best, and you stay safe out there. Bye bye.